The Eternal City. Expectations are naturally high when visiting Rome with such a designation. The place hardly warrants an introduction. Some argue it is the greatest city in the entire world. Every corner is flowing with historical significance. You can stumble upon some of the best food you've ever eaten in the most unassuming cafe or restaurant. The magic of getting lost in this city is only rivaled by some of the greatest travel experiences out there. And in March of 2023, I got to experience that magic firsthand. Over the course of 5 days, I witnessed some of the highs and lows of traveling in Rome. Let's walk through why I chose to visit Rome for this trip, what my 5-day itinerary ended up being, and how I would depart with a whole new perspective on visiting the Eternal City. Let's jump ahead to day 5 for a moment. As I drop off Jenny and Corinne at the clinic for their last day of work in Rome, I find myself reflecting on why I chose to go here in the first place. After turning it down twice for alternative locations, which ended up being my Hawaii and Peru trips, it was finally the perfect time to visit. Aside from it being one of the best travel destinations, Jenny had a month-long clinical rotation right in the heart of the old city. This meant my housing would be free, and I would have the best company when I arrived at my destination. How could I say no to that? Aside from the convenience of these factors, I had also had an itch to visit Rome for many years. My grandparents had spent much time there and continually sang its praises. I'd never met someone who didn't love the city and everything it had to offer. There were so many reasons to go, and all I needed was the plane ticket there. Now let's start from the very beginning. When compared to my original planned itinerary, things went off the rails before I even got to Italy. A very delayed flight in New York City resulted in a misconnection in Lisbon, several hours waiting in an airport lounge, new friends along the way, and a very late arrival to Rome. As a result, my first day was lost and my second day became more of a half day. I missed my original plan for Sunday, which was a day trip to Florence. While Jenny and Corinne explored Florence without me, I had the apartment and Rome to myself. Well, mostly. When I was finally up and ready, I decided to utilize Sunday as a day to get my feet wet and wander the streets of Rome. I explored every passageway I could and discovered lots of new pieces of knowledge about the city and its ancestry. Walking aimlessly around Rome ended up being so much fun and would be an experience that would really stay with me. Right away, it made me comfortable with the city and excited for more context through tours of these sites, but those would not be until tomorrow. On day 2, I woke up early and walked in the rain towards the Colosseum. My tour, which included the Roman Forum and Palatine Hill as well, began at 9 a.m. and would go up until lunch. This was one of my most anticipated parts of the trip, and it did not disappoint. The Roman Forum was especially marvelous. The whole experience really felt as though I had stepped back in time. From there, I would have my favorite meal of the entire trip, get hailed on a bit, and follow all that up with more sleep. This would not be uncommon the first few days of the trip. The evening was spent exploring Rome some more with Jenny after a hearty pasta dinner. The magic of the city, especially the Trastevere neighborhood, felt more poignant than ever in this cool spring evening. It was as if we had these narrow streets all to ourselves. On day 3, my morning was spent exploring the various works of art in the oldest dedicated art museum in the world, the Capitoline Museum. Primarily consisting of marble works, every piece felt so refined and polished. The intimate views of the Roman Forum as well really solidified my love for this historic space. Couple that with experiencing the military planes flying over to celebrate the country's Air Force and its 100th anniversary, and it just made for a surreal experience. A true combination of ancient and modern happening right before my eyes. After a less than ideal lunch, the three of us took a cab to Appian Way, or at least close enough to it. After quite a bit of walking, we found the best parts of the historic highway. Compared to the hustle and bustle of the city, this place was peace incarnate. Its energy was undeniable, and being there as the sun began to set was such a mesmerizing experience. It was the perfect end to a day focused on the historical significance of the whole region. Day 4 allowed me the chance to experience the Borghese Villa and its surrounding park. Seeing the museum through the eyes of a guide gave me such a better understanding of not only the art, but the artists themselves and the founder of this villa. It would end up being my favorite museum and one of my favorite experiences from the entire trip. It is scary to think I almost dropped it from my itinerary entirely for more staple experiences in Rome. The rest of the day was spent exploring the park with its beautiful viewpoints of the city, followed by an upscale lunch and lots of time spent wandering down the narrow streets and corridors with my camera in hand. I spent the sunset at Castello d'Angelo before meeting up with Jenny and Corinne for dinner and drinks. I would end up snapping some of my favorite pictures of the trip on this day, which would show me my first glimpse of Vatican City and what was to come on my last day in Rome. Now, day 5 was quite bittersweet and left me feeling a bit conflicted. Despite some confusion with the tour group, I managed to get to the Vatican Museum and wind through its seemingly never-ending halls. The whole experience was, if I'm being honest, a bit overwhelming and not exactly what I had expected. The rooms and art were beautiful, they were magnificent, but it was difficult to admire with the crowds and the indulgence of it all. After visiting the Sistine Chapel, I made my way to the main square in front of St. Peter's. I cannot explain it, but at that moment, I turned around. It did not feel right to go in, and I instead met Jenny and Corinne for lunch to celebrate after their final day of work. Once we made a quick stop at the Pantheon, we all went home to work on packing as we would prepare to leave tomorrow. Before bed, Jenny and I got a chance to appreciate the sunrise at Borghese Park one final time. And once we went to bed, that would be it. There we go. Bye, apartment.
Oh my gosh.
Nice. Nice, break it on. Nice. My last day in Rome ended up being one of the most important for me. With its many museums and historical sites, there is a laundry list that comes with visiting the city. It is grand and beautiful, and unlike anywhere I have ever visited before. But at some points the trip did not feel like my trip, and changing that mindset would end up disrupting the entire original point of my visit there. When I booked my Vatican tour, I'd been a bit hesitant to go as it was. There were parts of the city that I just wanted to prioritize instead. And as the week went by, I started to visit less locations and just instead wander for hours in the day. I had left a lot of room in my original plan to just see what I would bump into in the city. And I found that this way of exploring and seeing the city would end up being the best part of my time in Rome. And it would lead to moments that I would cherish always while traveling. There are so many amazing churches, museums, and fragments of history to stumble upon in Rome that you almost don't even need a plan. Just pick a direction and bump into the things that really grab your eye. Those things that are worth seeing will end up speaking for themselves. And maybe this philosophy can be applied to other travel locations as well. I'm glad that I planned the trip the way that I did, with open hours to find my way around. I'm also relieved that I left plenty to see for next time, because my next experience in Rome will be just as magical as the first one was. The city has stood the test of time for over 2,500 years, and it will keep going. The memories I associate with it, the love that was shared with me here, and the lessons that I learned about myself and how I like to travel will stay with me forever. No wonder it's called the Eternal City. Final closing thoughts about Rome. It's been really amazing. I love it here. I love the history, and I love the architecture, and the food has been amazing. I'd say my biggest takeaway was kind of to stop thinking about traveling as sort of I have to see this and this and this and this. And by a certain point, I really just wanted to explore, wander, see the different neighborhoods. And once I let that go and I really started exploring and spending time focusing on my photography, on my Italian, on different, things like that, it really opened up the trip for me and made it a lot more satisfying. So, that was kind of the thing that I walked away with. And, I definitely recommend making a trip to Rome if you can, but I would say give it at least a few days, because there's so much to see and enjoy here and experience that just a couple days, I mean, it's going to be hard to really get that experience. So yeah, thanks for watching. That's the video, and I'll see you in the next one.